joined by a very special guest, Olympic gold medalist and world champion, Lilly King. Lilly, welcome. How are you, and how are things in the bubble in Budapest with the International Swimming League?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm good right now. Just got done with match number 3, and Cali Condors took the win. So it was pretty good meet. And as far as in the bubble here, it's almost normal. So it's been nice.
Any hesitation before committing to this season, and what kind of protocols did the International Swimming League put in place here for this season?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I had any concerns about joining the league this year. I just knew that this was going to be an opportunity to race, and that was something I haven't had since March. And I think a lot of the swimmers didn't really know when we would be able to race again. So I definitely saw this as an opportunity and really hopped on it. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it's been really great. And again, like it's almost kind of normal here. Just get to, go to practice and swim some meets, and it's been fun.
Awesome. And how has it been working with Jason Lezak, and overall just being on the Cali Condors? And obviously this is a team competition here, but how does this different from, I guess, last year, where sure you were a team, but you were able to really be around each other, where this time you are a team, but you have to be isolated?
Yeah, it's been cool. I mean, second year working with Jason, so that's been awesome. I mean, if you told me Jason Lezak was going to be in charge of me at some point in my life, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But now, here we are with season 2 of ISL, and really, it's been great having such a long block of time with our team, just because, as you said, we didn't have that last year. We all knew each other for the most part pretty well. But I think it's really kind of taken our team chemistry to the next level, just being able to be around each other for so much longer this year.
No doubt about it. And obviously, you're working the last 4 years, you're working for this summer, and the games get postponed. How do you stay sharp, motivated, and hungry now as you have to go through an extra year grind here to get to the Olympics?
Yeah, it was definitely difficult this summer, especially just because there were, it was before we knew if ISL was going to happen or not. So it was really just kind of grinding for the sake of grinding. We just, had no meets in sight, really. So I think just now, like, being able to be in Budapest and be competing is making the grind a lot easier than it was this summer.
No doubt about it. So obviously, when everything shut down, I guess it was pretty tough to continue your training. How did you, spend some of that downtime? Did you turn to catching up on some TV, or did you listen to some podcasts? I'm sure, it's been go for you for the past 6 or 7 years, and you probably had a time to have a little bit of mental rest. And how did you spend that time?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't really do anything too exciting. Pretty much all I do anyway is go to practice and go home and chill. So I just did a lot of relaxing, and I did, watch some Netflix and stuff like that. But other than that, it was a pretty low key quarantine for me.
All right, no doubt about it. Everybody probably turned to Netflix and was certainly, trying to pass the time however they could. When you're looking back here on 2016, the games at Rio, of course, your first games, and of course, you did very well winning the gold medal. But what kind of experience was it? What did you really take away from that? And obviously, things are a little different now because we know what's going to be next year. But what are some things you learned in Rio that you're definitely going to be able to help you here moving forward in 2021?
Yeah, Rio seems like so long ago to me. Like, I don't want to say I don't remember anything, but it was so long ago, and I was so inexperienced going into Rio because that was like my first national team meet, that I had like just so much information to take in that it was a little bit overwhelming. But like thinking of like my first national team being with Michael Phelps and Ryan Lochte and all those, all the greats. And just kind of watching them go through their process, and I mean, like their warm-up process, their warm-down process, how they handle themselves before the ready room, just all of those little things adding up, I think really made an impact on me. Maybe not at that meet, but definitely at different meets down the road. Just like watching how professional they were and how they took care of themselves over, the span of an 8-day meet, which is pretty exhausting.
Yeah, I'm sure you get asked this in every interview, but what was it like being on the same team with the greatest of all time, Michael Phelps? And what are things that you learned from him that maybe kind of humanized him a bit? Because I'm sure going into it before you even know him, he was just on this whole other pedestal, and there's probably some things that surprise you there when you're getting to know him.
Yeah, absolutely. He honestly, like, I really made it just in time. It's like my first national team meet was his last one, so just snuck it in there. But I was genuinely surprised how nice and caring he was, especially after my whole incident before the 100 breaststroke, and how I had kind of blown up in the realm of social media. He was very intentional with asking me how I was doing every day. And just, I think it was something like I didn't realize the magnitude of what I had done quite yet. And he knew what was going on. So I think just the like little thing of just asking me how I was every day. That's something I will always remember about him.
Absolutely. It seems like, and of course, overall, USA, he carried the flag coming in the opening ceremonies, which is a great honor as well. Ryan Lochte, everyone I think is rooting for him to come have one more strong Olympics here. What can you tell us about Ryan Lochte that we might not know on the surface?
Ryan's a great guy. He is one of the, I said the same thing about Michael, but Ryan is one of the like genuinely nicest people I've ever met. He's just a big goofball. Like,
yeah, I mean, I watched him on.
Ryan is Ryan.
I don't know if you saw him on Celebrity Big Brother last year, but he was very funny, and they put in like this mini like pool hot tub for him to practice, which I thought was funny. And if you haven't seen his reality show from a few years back, it's a must watch. And I'm sure
he's a big goober. Yeah.
about it. So obviously, last Olympics, your first Olympics. Now, in the next Olympics here, you're going to be considered one of the veterans, one of the senior leaders. Any added pressure there, knowing that, now you're going to be the one basically in that, older mentor shoes, and what knowledge can you pass along to younger swimmers?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it would be any added pressure. I like being in that scenario. I like being the oldest, or I'm not the oldest, obviously, but I like being, one of the more experienced. And it's nice to help out the younger swimmers and help out the less experienced swimmers, just because, I feel like I have learned so much, and even just the last 4 years, that I can pass on to them, and hopefully, they'll use and then pass on to the next generation, and it just keeps going and going. So, I really like the spot I'm in right now.
Excellent. And what was it like living in the Olympic Village, and were you starstruck at all seeing any athletes from across the world or any other sports?
I genuinely don't even really remember, because it was so long ago, and I feel like I was 12 years old at the Olympics. But I do remember, I wouldn't say I was starstruck by anyone, because like I was on a swim team with Michael Phelps, like wasn't that enough? But I was just shocked how tiny the gymnasts were. Like you cannot actually get a feel for how small they are until they're standing right next to you and their head's like coming up to your hip.
Right. I think Simone Biles is like 4'8" or 4'9" or something like that.
Yeah, she's tiny. We were watching opening ceremonies together, and I was sitting on the floor, and they like walked past me, and my head was like at their hip. It was wild. I was like, I'm not even that tall, but they were just so little. That was the thing I remember, is like they were just the smallest people I've ever seen in my life.
Great athletes, of course, just like the swimmers. I really think, when you're looking at Olympics every 4 years, that swimmers and gymnasts, but mostly swimmers for the first week, are really in the total spotlight. And I think with the Olympic cycle, there's a lot of peaks and valleys when it comes to getting notoriety, publicity, or whatnot. So kind of walk us through, basically being the highest of highs there with the Olympics, and then how do you, right after the Olympics, how do you snap yourself back into being like, all right, now I got to regroup here, I got to get going again. Let me put this maybe popularity or notoriety I'm gaining behind me a little bit. Or maybe you say, maybe I want to leverage that into something else. But how do you deal with the extreme up and downs when it comes to an Olympic cycle?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. I would say it's, coming off of an Olympics is not something you can just push behind you and forget about. Especially if you have a lot of success at the Olympics, because you're going to have at least 3-4 month period where people are going to continue to recognize you when you're out at the grocery store, out to eat with your friends and doing normal things that you wouldn't consider like to be like somewhere you could spot a star or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely difficult. I was really lucky because I was going into my sophomore year of college when I got back. So I got back from the Olympics, and then a week later I started school again. So it was like, all right, this is over, like hop into it. But I definitely had a lot of,
how was that school year?
Yeah. But I would say I definitely had a lot of trouble just as far as like swimming motivation the next year, 2, 3. Just because it is such a, like, you go to the Olympics and you're like number one, you're like the best athlete in the world, and then you come back and you got to wait another 4 years or 5 years in this case.
No doubt about it. And did you ever just sit back and say, wow, I'm the best ever after you set the world record in the 100-meter and 50-meter breaststroke? And how did you, reflect on that once you realized, I set the record?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I like just sat down and reflected about it. It's kind of a motivation thing for me, just as like I'll, be in a race and say, are you really going to let them beat you? Like you're the world record holder. Like, let's do something about this. So that's kind of how I use it mostly.
Now, before a race, do you kind of size up your opponents and essentially maybe sometimes try to win the race before the race even happens by playing some mind games, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think enough swimmers take advantage of that. But yeah, all of us have been racing our competitors for years now, years. So we all know each other really well, and we know how. Well, at least I feel like I'm a pretty observant person, so I know how they carry themselves before a good swim, how they carry themselves before a bad swim, how they're going to swim a race, how they're going to swim the race. If they have a double, they're going to do the second race as well as the first race. So I think I definitely take advantage of the mind games and seeing if I can, take care of the race before we get off the blocks.
What is something that, because obviously NBC does some great profiles on all the athletes beforehand, but what is something your childhood friends or maybe younger teammates would say about you that would surprise the public? So something you wouldn't be hearing on the national profiling scale.
I'm not sure. Probably that I'm not actually a nasty person. I think a lot of people get like the TV view of me, which is before a race when I'm, in game mode. I'm ready to fight. And I'm really not. I'm the complete opposite of that the rest of the time. I'm still very competitive, but definitely not the evil, crazy version you see on TV.
Obviously, we talked about Michael Phelps before. He's known for his crazy schedules during the Olympics, doing so many different races. What races can we expect you to be competing in at the next Olympics next year?
I still have to make the team, but at trials I'll be swimming the 100 breast and the 200 breast, and then so hopefully I'll make both of those. 100s, I'll make the 100. The 200 it'll be a pretty tight race, but hoping to make the 200 as well. And then the 400 medley relay, if I'm selected for that, which probably will be, and then the 4x100 mixed medley relay. So those are my 4 races if everything goes as planned.
Excellent. And what is the schedule like looking right now with qualifying moving forward here?
Well, we got to finish up ISL, and then I don't have any meets planned until trials, which is in June. And then after trials, we've got a couple weeks, and then we're right into Tokyo. Is
there something you're looking forward to outside of the games itself, going to Tokyo? And what's been kind of like, obviously you probably don't have much time when you're going to world events and whatnot, but what's like the coolest part about being able to travel and see the world?
I'm not sure. It's kind of like, it's great that we get to travel and do all these things, but you don't really get to see the world. I'm in all these different cool places, but I think something people don't realize is that we only see the hotel and the pool. That's about it. You do have the occasion where you get to go out and do some sightseeing, but for the most part, before the meet, and especially before the Olympics, it's time to rest up. So, yeah, not as glorious as it always seems.
Figure as much. Yeah, obviously, people probably say all the time, "Oh, it must be so cool you went to Rio," and you're just like, "Hey, I was in the village and I went straight to work. So it's a business
Pretty
trip.
much.
You're not there for leisure.
Definitely.
All right. So Lilly, we appreciate your time here. Thank you very much. Best of luck with the rest of the International Swimming League season, and of course, moving forward with the Olympics. Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, Lilly King, Olympic champion. And this again has been Nick Durst for The Zone. Thank you, Lilly.
Cool. Thanks for having me.